Hello and welcome back to the Swole Panda podcast. Today we're doing a slightly different format to the podcast where we're going to be interviewing and speaking to an entrepreneur. And this hopefully will be a series that we move forwards with. And it's hosted by myself, James, and my brother, Oliver.
Hey, hey.
And we're going to introduce the first guest, which is very exciting.
It's exciting.
Who is it, Oliver?
It's Billy from Peak Performance. That is right, yeah.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
So, well, thank you for coming on. You're our first guest here. And I think it's a nice format to hear from some other entrepreneurs, people following a similar path that we have. And I think we'll just get straight into it, if you're good with that.
Yes,
so, can you sort of give us a brief introduction of Peak Performance and sort of where it started and how you got into that?
So it's like a biohacking health optimization service for entrepreneurs doing 6 to 9 figures per year. Been operating now for 8 years, primarily online, and obviously as a byproduct, I've now worked with about 700 individuals doing anywhere from high 6 figures to one of my clients does 16 million a month from a software business. So yeah, extremely cool, got to meet some really cool people, travel with it as a byproduct, and yeah, built it up from being a personal trainer to then obviously everything online. So it's been a cool process.
Awesome. And so where do you think your sort of interest in health and fitness and sort of biohacking initially came from?
From sport initially, I was playing tennis at a pretty high level.
We went to school together, didn't we?
Yeah, we all went.
I remember you being so good at tennis.
That was the gig. So yeah, I wanted to be pro, and then realised that realistically you have to have a ton of money behind you to do that. And also, if you get injured simultaneously, you're a coach the rest of your life. It's pretty much the gig. So didn't really want to make that sacrifice. And then probably pretty similar to you, to be fair, just started getting to training pretty quickly, and obviously the kind of bodybuilding scene. And then realised in terms of monetizing that from a career perspective that there wasn't much opportunity unless you were extremely jacked and could take an abundance of topless photos. And therefore, yeah, I obviously trained as a PT, started working in London, met some really cool people that were operating in the property space and also recruitment. So some really cool people there who were quite young. I was working in, do you guys know Old Street near Moorgate?
Yes.
So the city.
Yeah. What gym was that again? Gym box, that was it, yeah.
So I met a guy called Daniel Webble who runs a very big property business, and a guy called Kane Fallon who ran a big recruitment business as well. Started to learn about their models and how potentially I could leverage a similar kind of thing in the fitness space, or at least adopt some kind of their systems and processes. And then went online and met a few people very early. So do you guys know Iman Gadzi?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's got like 5 mil subs now, runs an education business. I met him when I was 18, he was 17. I was actually doing a little bit of work on the side for a social media marketing agency. This guy called Danny Lowney, who runs 16th Talent, and he was working with influencers. So like the Amanda Bucci of the fitness world, who perhaps you're familiar with, Jeff Nippard, Rob Lipsett, all these types of people. So I went to a fitness event, met Iman there. He was doing videography work, and he was doing about 10, 20K a month at that age, which was to me very impressive. Then I started following him, seeing what he was doing. Then he started running a digital marketing agency. And about 6 months later, he was doing about 50K a month profit. So he then got into contact with me, asked me to train him in person. And then from there, I kind of extrapolated what would be a good service to deliver to those types of people. And then scaled from there. And obviously, as a byproduct, have grown with my clients simultaneously, because obviously, as they grow their audience, I benefit from that simultaneously. Yeah, it's been fun, man, for sure.
So at the beginning, what do you think was the main obstacle to get in contact with those sort of people? Was it just, you needed just to go for it and...
Yeah, to be fair, the online guys specifically, it was a lot easier back then. So you could send a DM and you get a response. Whereas now, like the amount of DMs you will receive is just ridiculous. We get spammed all the time by appointment setters or whoever it may be trying to sell something or an offer. So no matter what DM you send, the likelihood of you getting a response is very low. Whereas back then, it was pretty high, particularly if you had some form of content and it was highly produced.
That was a bit like us with the men's fashion posts with like on Instagram. You'd just put a man's fashion post up, you get sales like that, and now it's changed so much.
It's even more crazy, right? Like the volatility of ads and everything is nuts. So
And expensive, like to obtain a client now is so much more expensive than it used to.
Well, yeah, e-commerce specifically, yeah, because obviously a lot of our stuff is different to you guys. Like it's all organic media primarily, and inbound and word of mouth. Whereas for you guys, I'm assuming it's ads as well from acquisition.
Paid ads is a big role, and that is just, well, certainly since COVID, it's got so much more expensive. Obtaining customers. So do you think you've always known you wanted to work for yourself?
Yeah. I'm totally unemployable. It wouldn't have worked in any capacity. No, it would have been terrible. I mean, I resented school so much. I didn't want to be there at all. like the social element of it was great, but otherwise, like I hated the academic side of it, and I just didn't see any purpose in being there at all. Like A-levels was a total waste of time from my perspective. So it got like good offers from universities like Bath for sports as well, like a scholarship for tennis. But I just had no interest in pursuing that at all. So
And you didn't go to uni?
no. Like
So straight, was it sixth form straight into PT course?
yeah, straight away. Yeah. So I did my PT course in Brighton that October.
Yeah.
So that was like, I think it was like £5 or something like that. So
Yeah, PT level 3. I mean,
exactly.
I did it as well.
Yeah.
You've had a much more successful career in it, though.
I was staying, Alex went to school with him as well. I was staying in his freshers house on his bedroom floor. So he'd be going out partying and I'd be doing my PT course. So at 5 a.m, the fucking door would bang on my head and wake me up, and it'd be him battered walking in, and I'd be like, right, I'm waking up to do my PT course.
Right.
So I did that for like 3 months, and then obviously I had to go back home for a little bit just to save some little bit of cash before I moved to London. And then I got offered the job at Gymbox that December, so that would have been like 2016, 2017 probably. Had like 500 quid at the time, so I was really pushing it, quite frankly. And I was staying with a family friend, and then I realised I had to pay 1.25k in rent to Gymbox that month, your first month, and you have no leads. You're a freelancer working in the facility, and you're paying rent to work there. So I had to sell pretty aggressively, to be frank, from the outset. And then that put my back against the wall, and it helped massively. I actually think that was really beneficial for me.
I think.
But the churn rate of personal trainers is obscenely high. Like it'd be 2 new PTs every 2 weeks, and 1 would stick every 6 months.
Wow,
it was that high.
Yeah,
Because it's just so cutthroat, and like, the rent alone.
Just out of interest for people that might be looking at becoming a PT, how in that sort of level, like how did you just go up to people and be like, "Hi, I'm a PT"?
Walk straight up to them. 18-year-old me.
Okay.
Yeah, wearing the Gymbox uniform. Just went straight up to them. It's pretty ballsy. But I knew I had to make money, and it was just a case of offering some form of free value in advance and just showing passion and enthusiasm for it, which is the primary thing to display. And then from there, convert them. But converting them is quite easy. It's just having a conversation with someone and selling them on a relatively decent price. But that interaction in itself is difficult for a lot of people to get over because they're so anxious about it. But if you have a little bit of confidence behind you, you're fine.
I think that is super important. Especially if you're starting out on your own. Well, we found this cold calling shops in our example, like if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you, right? So and especially in the early days when it is pretty much you got to pay your rent somehow. So at the moment, have you got a team? Have you got a team of people, or is it just you? Or
on the back end, So I outsource my fulfillment work to a team for when we're working with corporates or big teams. And if I'm working with clients in the one-to-one capacity, it's me. The reason being is because the price of service is 20k for 12 weeks, so it's a premium service, and building relationships with my clients benefits me. So rather than outsourcing that to a fulfillment team, it actually makes more sense for me to work with them directly. And then our objective long term is to open medical testing facilities in the UK as well. So I was speaking to Kate about this earlier. Do you guys know Randox?
I've heard of it.
Heard of it? Yeah, they do about 250 to 350 million a year from medical testing, but there's no media, there's nothing to it at all. It's just all inbound primarily. It's owned by Mike Ashley, by Fraser Group. So our objective is to raise capital for that through the clients I work with, because some of them are making 16 million a month. They have a few quid behind them. And then, of course, leverage some form of logistic partnership. And therefore, I can be the face of it, build the media side, etc., and have other people also doing that. And then, scale it, because, again, the NHS is failing. Fundamentally, what I do is more biohacking based for clients we work with. But if I can make health more accessible to everyday people, it's going to be a huge business and benefits an abundance of people. So, it'd be great to make happen for sure.
Because that's much more, what you're doing is much more preventative long term, right? Because the NHS is very reactive, and I think that's why it's in such a mess it's in.
Sure, man. Like, I lost my dad's cancer 4 years ago, so I saw that whole process unfold, and how like life or death it can be. And unfortunately, just the way they managed every scenario there was appallingly bad, and we witnessed it. So seeing how bad that was for such a life-threatening illness was insane to me. It made absolutely no sense. And it's not the NHS's fault, of course. There's so many logistical issues there, but if we can provide some form of education as to how people can actually improve their quality of health before getting to that state, that'd be awesome. If we can make it accessible financially, that's going to be amazing. So that's the plan long term.
And you said the outsourcing. What part of the business is that?
Sleep analysis, blood work, gut health assessments, all that type of stuff. So we outsource that to specialists. So there's a facility that I operate from also called Until. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
It's a pretty new facility. So the two founders raised money from Stephen Bartlett, who everyone knows from Huel, of course, the Huel advocate. He's actually been banned from advertising, which is super interesting. from not disclosing his investments, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. But yeah, he invested in that heavily. So it's a medical testing facility. There's 3: Marylebone, City, and also Soho. And there's medical professionals working from there. So I meet loads of cool people by working from there also and just doing some content there. And then, hire people from that purpose there. So it works really well. But that's when I'm working with teams and I can't manage the volume of people because working with 50 people at one go is just way too much work. It's just not manageable. So.
Have you found it difficult to find the right people?
Yes, the hardest part. Yeah. And I'm slightly autistic, so it makes it 10 times worse. It's awful. And like the standards and level of that communication, I find it very difficult. So my objective really in terms of how I operate will be I build the front end, the media side of things and the acquisition channels, and then someone does the management. But every time I partner with someone for that purpose, I still clash with them. Because I lose all autonomy. Like you guys are brothers, so it's different. But even that must be difficult, like working as brothers for sure. But
we are so opposite. Like it is
so opposite. I mean, James is like very like ADHD.
Okay.
And I'm probably more autistic. We complement each other, and James is kind of more, I guess, out there the selling side, people person. And I'm in the back end,
and
just
I think the other
the logistics and everything.
I don't think we've ever actually had an argument.
Really? No,
never, because I think we just always look at things and go, well, let's discuss, and then we've never. I think if one of us is very certain on this is how it is, the other person will be like, you know what, you're so sure of it, we're gonna roll with it, and just every decision we 100%.
That does come back to actually being brothers, right? Yeah. Because I think it's very difficult to have that level of trust, even if you've been friends with someone or even been in business with someone for years.
You probably have more context for how they've come to that decision also, right, in terms of how they think about things. Whereas if I partner with someone, it's a stranger, I have no context.
Yeah, it's difficult. And finding the right people is, as we have found as well, very, very difficult.
And you said acquiring new customers. What would you say is the best platform to do that for you? Or is there a certain platform you think is best? Or is it...
Well, for me, for me, fortunately, in terms of what I do specifically, also the clients I work with have huge audiences. So a lot of the time I do JVs with them, so joint ventures, where if I do a video with them or put whatever it may be, they drive traffic to my stuff. I pay them a percentage back and it benefits both parties because they get seen as being the person uber successful and also presenting health opportunities as well. So they win also. So that's been great for us. And of course, YouTube specifically. So there's a couple of videos I posted. One got 250,000 views on, do you know Brian Johnson? Yeah, so I did like a whole review of his whole process and that blew up. So the inbound from that's significant as well. And we drive that traffic to, have you guys heard of School? Yeah, it's like it's a new software. It was developed from the guy in the education space called Sam Ovens. He was really big. He did like 40 million a year from an education business. He built a software where you have a course, payment processes, a community all in one platform. So I leverage that and then I give people access to that for free. So in terms of like a lead nurture tool or a magnet, it's really beneficial to us because it's about 30, 40 hours worth of content we previously charged 10K for. So it's very valuable. They get access for free. They're impressed by it. They have more context for our offer by that point, and therefore conversion's really easy. So we're giving away all the secrets basically, and then we simply help facilitate delivery when we work with them one-to-one, and that's why the one-to-one component is so valuable. So.
And is there any other software that's like key for your business?
Asana. Truthfully, that's pretty much it, and that's more so for management of project delivery with a client in terms of documentation of work, and that's pretty much it, man. Because like we're not too dependent on softwares. The way I deliver primarily through one-to-one. When I'm working with clients, one-to-one for teams, obviously Asana is more important for us. But we do one-to-one calls every week, so it's half an hour, and then daily communication just to check in. Obviously, you have check-in forms through Typeform, etc. But it's pretty basic stuff. It doesn't need to be complex, nor expensive. Everyone makes that mistake of probably going too far down the rabbit hole. You
can just go on and on and on.
Yeah, at one point we used a CRM called Close. You guys heard of Close?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, the monthly cost from that was like near $1,000, just for lead nurturing purposes, and you could just build it out through Excel. Like truthfully, it's just so unnecessary.
Subscriptions we've got so many different plugins and softwares because we use Prospect for all of our B2B stuff, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap, and you're adding Shopify Zero, and it's like
it's crazy, right? Yeah, it eats into margins, but for us we're lucky because the margin we operate at is 90%. So we provide cost of product for our clients, and that's it. And then there's no acquisition cost because it's all through organic media and through referrals and word of mouth. So the softwares I don't really care about too much, but I still don't want to be stupid with it or ignorant to the cost and the accrual of that. So it's a pretty good model to be fair.
Okay, wow, wow, that is cool. And do you find it hard juggling family life, work life, and everything? Because it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I think everyone does, but the autism doesn't help with that, for sure. Yeah, I'm not the best communicator. That's definitely the case. In terms of expressing my own thoughts and opinions, or if I'm concerned or upset by something, I'm not brilliant at that, because I kind of hold it in and then explode, which isn't ideal in an outburst, which is great. A calm one, but still an outburst. Obviously there was more severity to it, because obviously I lost my dad, so having to support my mum, my brother also added a lot of complexity to that, and it meant that I kind of had to step up, so that was a bit of a different kind of arrangement, to be fair, but yeah, it's all right, man. Like, just communication, this helps a lot. But like, I don't understand the element of people being ignorant to family life whilst running a business. I think it's really stupid, quite frankly, and it's just selfish, truthfully, so what's the point? Like, why are you running a business otherwise? You need to provide for other people.
We are in exactly the same sort of viewpoint of that.
But everyone just sacrifices their relationships, and I think it's being selfish, for sure.
The thing is now,
I don't know if that's a generational thing as
well, I think now the way technology's come on, it's allowed everyone to work in a much more flexible manner. Whereas it used to be, in the office 9 to 5 in your states. Some people would stay till 8 o'clock at night or whatever.
In that case, I can understand that. It must be very challenging. But with the online stuff, it makes it so easy. Like, even just jumping on a call with your mum and dad is just like so easy now. So there's no excuse for it, really, is there? No. For sure.
And what's sort of an average day in the life, like an average work day in the life? Like for you,
from start to finish.
What time do you wake up? General.
Yeah, typically like 6 or 7. It depends. I've got 2 little dogs, so whenever they wake up and lick my face, that's pretty much it.
Good alarm clock.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. Little sausage dog with stinky breath. No, take them for a little walk, classic, feed them, etc. And I pretty much start working from the outset. I typically train for about 2-3 hours per day, because I'm still playing tennis as well, and my gym work on top. And then obviously recovery stuff like sauna, cold plunges, etc. But typically Monday through to Wednesday is client focused, so client calls, facilitation of delivery, management of them. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday is all content and of growth of the business. So I have a couple of team members who focus on strategy for that as well, so I liaise with them there. It means I divide my time really well, and therefore on a weekly basis, progress actually made rather than just being overwhelmed by stuff. And clients are aware of that schedule as well, so it makes my life very easy to manage, which is good. It's very helpful.
Do you train 7 days a week then? Or?
No, like 5, 6. Yeah, tennis is a lot though. It's like 2 hours on court per day. Wow. So because I still love it. And the guys I'm playing with are like aspiring pros, they're like top 500. So it's like, it's a good level and it's good fun. But it's nice having the kind of relaxed element to that now, rather than it being like competitive. I can just enjoy it. Yeah, for sure. So it's like fun. I'm like a kid again, which is nice.
So you said that you want to kind of focus on actually building like the health analysis moving forwards. Where do you kind of see the business in sort of 5 years' time?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, fair.
Yeah, I personally...
I mean, it's a difficult question.
I personally think anyone that says with confidence, I think they're chatting shit. I've never seen anyone actually fulfill what they say they're going to do within a 5-year time period. I mean, there'll be evolution to it. Like the stuff we do on an online basis is so profitable for us because the margins are so high. I need to prioritize that no matter what, of course, and there's still a huge amount of growth that can be facilitated. And I leverage the term biohacking because it's a massively growing market. I don't agree with some perspectives of it, but I leverage similar processes in terms of metric-based approach to health. So we can grow that exponentially. That requires me to build the media side and then paid acquisition as well. But paid acquisition for this is quite easy because acquisition costs are like 300 to 500 quid for a 20k client. Like margins are fine. But the medical testing facilities, I'm gonna have to go through so much, like the logistics side of that. I wanna outsource that entirely, truthfully, to someone I can poach from an existing company. I have to raise capital for it. Obviously building out the sites is gonna cost a lot as well. But the play for that really is I wanna be the face initially and then expand that to having multiple faces who represent different kind of audiences potentially. So we have like a universal approach to that. And then, hopefully expand into Europe and also UAE, America as well would be great. America's going to be way more difficult to crack just because their healthcare system is so appallingly bad. It's crazy, man. Like in Canada specifically, to get a blood test, you have to get requisitions from 2 doctors and then they charge you about $1,500 for a blood test, which costs 150 quid here. It's nuts. I've had clients be turned away, they're in their mid-20s because their facial hair, the doctor says you look healthy. Like that's how bad the level is in countries like that. Western countries, which is mental. The UAE is obviously a massively growing market and I do like Dubai, so being out there more frequently would be cool. I definitely couldn't live there, absolutely no way. Being out there for a week or two at a time.
Why don't you think you could live out there?
The lack of greenery, for one, like being here is so sick. for one, in terms of peace of mind as well. Also, like the cultural aspect of that is a massive shift. It's quite difficult to adopt, particularly living in London where it's so diverse and then it's so strict there is quite a contrast. Also, just the excessive flaunting of money, I just don't appreciate nor enjoy at all. And all my mates that I get on with really well that have moved out there, there's a load of them that have, and I like them, I love them to bits, but I can only spend a few hours with them because everything's just about money. Really? Yeah, which is good for a short conversation, but like, there's more to life. Yeah. And also there's only so much you can talk about money, and then it becomes ego predicated, and it's just pretty nasty pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it's quite easy. I went out there beginning of the year. It's easy to get to.
Yeah.
It's not, it's like 6 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, the climate's great. Yeah. Like winter out there is awesome. Yeah. So like going back and forth is cool, but I'd much rather be in like south of France or somewhere. Yeah. For sure, like Cannes, Antibes, that kind of area. I've been out there 5 times this year. Oh, lovely. It's just so peaceful. I'd much rather be out there and then find some kind of tax system which we can leverage would be nice.
I know. Well, that's the main draw, isn't it, for Dubai, really?
Yeah, and I don't really think that's going to be the case long term either. I personally think they're going to seize assets for abundance of people. There's so much criminal activity that happens out there. Really? Yeah, okay. It's crazy. Like I was even watching a few documentaries recently about the Australian drug ring out there. Oh, okay. There's a building full of Australian drug lords. It's like 28 floors worth of the top selling drug dealers in Australia. All operate from there, and then their assets, when you set up bank accounts and you buy property in UAE, you don't have to explain where your assets come from, where your money comes from. I think they'll put a system in place where they will, and then they'll be extremely critical of that. I think, loads of people's money will get seized. Because the banking system is all, you have to be in the country to sign documents, get access to your account. If you get shut out whilst you're in Europe, you have to go. You have to go over there to get it done. So like, if you're risking that, that's pretty mental. Like all your money there, I don't know about that. That's pretty crazy. Whereas in the UK, like, we're not at jeopardy of anything like that. Like,
not at the minute, thankfully.
Yeah, not at the minute. Well, hopefully not. Yeah. So, yeah,
that's it. Yeah, it could be changes then coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys read the book Nomad Capitalist,
haven't, no.
Yeah, there's an agency that talk about tax schemes no matter where you're based, and you pay like 15, 20k for that. So I'm going to go through that process as well just to see what the best system is. Okay. I obviously agree fundamentally in paying tax, but like when you see how they've been spending it as of late since COVID, particularly, it's
not the most efficient use of it. No,
it's so infuriating. Like the amount you have to pay is nuts, isn't it? So
it is. It is. And what would you say is the most common things that affect positively or negatively peak performance? Yeah. Is it like drinking, exercise, or what would you say on a positive and a negative?
Yeah. So the approach we take fundamentally is metric driven. So we do sleep metric analysis, blood work, gut health assessments, VO2 max assessments, DEXA scans, all that type of stuff, right? So everything we do is formulated based on evidence we acquire from a client. So before making any assumptions as to what the priority should be, we analyze those variables. So if an individual is chronically sleep deprived, that's the priority, of course. So do you guys know what an Oura ring is? Yeah, we use them for all of our clients. We supply them. Yeah.
Because I use a Whoop, which is similar.
Yeah, similar. Like, I'm pretty critical of Whoop. Okay. Reason being is because there's many analysis on this now in terms of comparison and data, or is just more accurate. Whoop's better marketed, there's no doubt. Like, they're making so much money, it's obscene. And Oura can't market themselves for shit. But the quality product's much better. I got dragged into the market. Yeah, and also it looks cool, right? Like, having that, like, everyone can resonate with it, right? It's kind of like an Apple Watch, whereas an Oura ring, it's like a ring, and it's like, I don't want to wear a ring. But it's much better in terms of accuracy. So we'll leverage that to assess data and then put in place systems. But I mean, for a lot of the clients we work with, their bloods are just appallingly bad. I had a client's DEXA scan come back this week and their body fat percentage was 43%. And that's our testing on our onboarding process. That's the kind of like level we're playing at with the people we operate with. So their quality of health is absolutely in the gutter. Okay. So verging on, in this instance, that's verging on obesity, of course. Yeah, I was going to say that. So when I get their bloods back, it's going to be pretty horrendous. I have no doubt about it. So we'll intervene for sure. Okay. A lot of the time, it's more so just from a dietary perspective. We have to intervene with those individuals and lifestyle changes because it's quite straightforward. Obviously, in some cases, there's more complexity to that, but typically that's for an older individual, they're mid-50s potentially. So the priority is dependent on the individual for sure. Okay. But sleep, if I was working with anyone, sleep would be the first thing I'd prioritize.
Focus on that before anything else.
Sure. You can't operate cognitively, emotionally, your memory function goes down the drain if you don't have your sleep quality in place. Yeah.
So in terms of your, do your clients vary in terms of, are some of them like pretty pretty healthy and want to just take it to the absolute next level. And then, so it varies. You know, you've got some people that are obviously overweight, which would be easier to identify the things to prioritize.
For sure, like we have two categories. We have people that are in debt with their health and want to get to a baseline, and then people that are at baseline and want to optimize. So it's two different kind of categories. And also in terms of the way I've marketed the service being peak health systems and peak performance predicated, it infers that we can either get you from being in debt to a baseline once again, or we can take you to the next level in terms of how you perform within your business as well. So both benefit equally as much. And obviously the process we apply depends on their situation, the context, which is why testing work is so important. Because if you ask anyone, like if I'm on a consultation call with a prospect potentially, the first thing they'll tell me if I ask them a question is, how do you evaluate their sleep? They say good. All right, okay, well let's define what that means. Right, let's actually unpack that. And if you give them the framework to unpack it, they realize very quickly it's actually abysmal, like very quickly. But you have to give them the framework, and that's why we give the free course, so they can actually determine what's good and bad and give them context. Otherwise, it just sounds like I'm waffling the entire time to many people, and it goes over their heads. So yeah, that's always helpful for sure.
Because I think the thing I've noticed since having my Whoop, that I'm sure there's some accuracy there.
It's not a total piece of shit.
Is sort of if you drink, the effect on your sleep. Sometimes you don't realize it, but I see on like my recovery on the app, it's like even like after maybe more than like a beer or two, like you've actually slept not very well, and it really like the recovery is bad.
Body temperature elevates, your REM sleep is 0, like 10 minutes perhaps in duration, whereas it should be about 2 hours per night. And as a byproduct, you simply can't perform in any capacity. You're pretty much a waste of space that day. So obviously that's one of the first things we inform the clients of as well. But in terms of like how much you analyze your metrics, do you do it a lot, or is it kind of just like?
I think, you know what, I don't analyze it that much. It's just something I like to look at for me to go, I need to make sure I carry on gymming, carry on, you know.
Accountability.
That's it. Accountability is it really, to be honest.
I mean, like there's so many severe cases that we work with where most people, they spend like 6 to 8 hours in bed per night. Most male clients we work with, they're awake for an hour and a half per night when we first start working with them. You can only see that through aura or Whoop. It's not possible otherwise because you're not aware of being awake. You're just tossing and turning, etc. So our objective is to get them down to 15 to 30 minutes per night and then get to REM sleep 2 hours, deep sleep 1 hour and a half. We can also assess things like cardiovascular health as well for their average resting heart rates. And obviously for a lot of our clients, that's a massive priority because they're working in office all day. So cardiovascular health is in the bin. And then also things like respiratory rate. So if they're nasal breathing or mouth breathing as well, which can impede quality of health also, and even their sleep as well. We can assess those variables. We can also, like it was super fascinating during COVID, I saw COVID hit early prior to it becoming like a big thing because I had access to all this data. I saw people's body temperatures skyrocket overnight. It was all my clients in the UK just like that, just over one night. Their respiratory rates were awful, their sleep quality was so bad, and I was like, this is crazy, like it must be like an illness or something. Then like a month later, everyone was like, China virus. So it's kind of mental, man, like seeing all of that information, and it's really fascinating to be fair.
And are there 3 sort of easy takeaways on something to change that is like, don't drink, basically, exercise, okay. So if there was sort of 3 easy takeaways to improve your health or your performance, what would you say they would be, whether it was drink or, you know.
For sleep specifically or
just performance?
Well, I'll dive into sleep first because I think most gain can be had from that. The first thing would be adequate duration, so time spent in bed. So most people typically kind of just spend 6 hours, 7 hours per night in bed, and that's just not sufficient to acquire the best metrics you possibly could and feel good. Our clients spend 9 hours per night in bed to account for about an hour of awake time on average. So 8 to 9 hours is appropriate. Also adequate scheduling or consistent scheduling. So as you guys know of your circadian rhythm, body clock, you probably heard those terms thrown around. There's massive importance on it. It's not something which should be understated. Consistency in that. So for example, with all clients we work with in the onboarding process, we establish a very clear time to go to bed and time to wake up. Deviance from that, more than an hour, causes massive havoc on your body. So your body doesn't know when to produce melatonin nor cortisol to wake you up. And as a byproduct, if you wake up feeling lethargic because you've slept in or you've woken up early, that's why. Yes, you are sleep deprived, but also there's a hormonal clash essentially occurring, which sucks. Which is why like on the summer holidays, when you woke up at 10, you're being lazy, you probably felt pretty crap when you woke up. That's why. Also for male clients we work with, it's slightly different as well. Obviously body temperature is a key variable of concern. So if you have money, you can buy an 8 Sleep, which is a bed cooling system in your duvet, which is really cool on your mattress.
I've seen an ad for that.
I mean, It's like 3.5k. It's pretty expensive. Yeah, but it's a great product.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to that, what I personally do instead is I go to the sauna prior to bed. The reason being is I want to expel heat and I want to dump heat. So I go to the sauna for 15 minutes at 90 degrees, go into a cold plunge, repeat that twice. I'm just expelling heat prior to bed. My body temperature is actually cooling down prior to bed, which is really helpful. Obviously, cracking window helps as well if you're not in a noisy environment, if you don't have access to money to buy these things also. And then from a supplementation perspective, once you have these things in place, I would then move on to supplementation. So for our clients, we leverage GABA, glycine, L-theanine, magnesium L3 and 8. Those are our primary products to use. GABA and glycine are a little less known, and also zinc. GABA and glycine you only incorporate when you really need to knock yourself out. So if you're stressed at night, you're going to bed late, you've had a hard conversation, work, stressful, whatever, incorporate them. There's no negative ramifications. It's not like melatonin. There's no hormonal substance in the product at all, so you'll be fine. But you don't need to use it every day. It's just not necessary. The primary function of that is it decelerates your heart rate, your body temperature, keeps you nice and relaxed. That's a primary use case. L-theanine, magnesium L3 and zinc, the same thing applies, just a little less impactful. So that's our primary stack. And then also the last thing I would encourage most individuals to do is just eat at an appropriate time. Most people eat pretty much right prior to bed, whether it be a snack or a late meal, because most of us are pretty lazy with that type of stuff. Consuming your last meal 3 to 5 hours prior to bed is really helpful. You digest your food, your heart rate decelerates, and as a byproduct, you're in a much better state to go to sleep. Whereas if you don't do that, of course, then it's going to be quite difficult for you, and you may feel pretty wired prior to bed, tossing and turning, digestion still taking place, not very comfortable. And obviously the last thing is just having your phone out your room. Like, it's just such an easy thing to do, but most individuals are just constantly scrolling, doom scrolling, right? And as a byproduct, it's pretty difficult to stop yourself from doing that. All the dopamine hits, it becomes 12, 1, 2, you're like, oh shit, I need to get up for 6 tomorrow. It's just...
And on the supplements, because I think it can be a bit of a minefield. For sure. I've just signed up to something else, which you're going to be like, height? Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah, because I was like, there's so many supplements out there. I just wanted something for myself and my fiance just to be like, yeah, take 2 of those a day, and it's good.
Yeah. So for supplementation for sleep, there's no personalization required in terms of any reference to blood work or anything like this. Just an appropriate amount of all the products I refer to. For supplementation, in terms of accounting for nutrient deficiencies and vitamin deficiencies, which are prevalent in all of our diets, doing it from your blood work is really important. Otherwise, you have no idea what benefit you're having from your supplementation. So I actually partnered with a company called Biohacking. Do you know of them?
Okay, I think I've heard of them.
Do you know Mike Thurston?
Yes.
Yeah, he's an affiliate for them as well. He's actually got shares in the company now. Okay. They take your blood work in a lab. If you're based in the UK, they actually send a nurse to your property. So the blood test takes about 5 minutes, which is really helpful. And then you get your personalized formula back in about 3 days' time. So when I do my client assessments for their nutrition as well, we use a platform called Chronometer, which shows us deficiencies, vitamin D, K, E, etc. That's also highlighted in blood test reports, and it's much more accurate, obviously, through bloods. So their formula is personalized based on that. So, for example, a client of mine based in India is 22, makes a ton of money, but sacrifices health to build his business. Yeah. He's incredibly vitamin D deficient. It was basically non-existent in his bloods. It was so bad. And as immune function is compromised, the byproduct, he feels really bad. His intake of vitamin D is 4 times higher than mine from his supplementation because he's so deficient. So I can actually see that, and that's why I'm an advocate for supplementation only if it's done through bloods. Yeah. Otherwise, quite frankly, it's a waste of time. Okay. You're just buying stuff, you don't really know what the utility of it is, spending tons of money on it from Holland & Barrett, Amazon, whatever it may be, and then you can't see the benefit from it. Okay. So with the bloods we do, it's every 3 months, and therefore the formula is repeated every 3 months. Yeah. So let's say your vitamin D deficiency is accounted for, you're back up to baseline, your intake's less the next time. Okay. So yeah, that's how I'd encourage people to proceed with that. It is expensive. Yeah. Like the blood work and the supplementation for 3 months will cost you about $1,000. Okay. But yeah, you can't really put a price on it, truthfully, like in terms of how you feel. So yeah, that's how we approach it.
Nice. So now I'm getting rid of my Whoop and my height subscription.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I think Stephen invests in heights as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
People need to stop selling me stuff online.
No, heights, it became really popular. Yeah. I can understand why, but again, it's just also like the plausibility of it. And also just when you think about it, also it makes sense to do your supplementation from bloods.
Yeah.
But
it needs to be personalised, which, I mean, it's not just a
otherwise you're just peeing it out. Or you could be taking too much of something which isn't beneficial to you. Yeah. Like the amount of times you see clients with their vitamin B intake being obscenely high, and it's actually impeding their quality of health because they take supplementation for that purpose and not really realise the impact. Or take a pre-workout vitamin B, which is the quantity of it is way too high. They have no idea unless they do their bloods. Like, it's just not possible to determine this stuff. So, and also getting your bloods done is just like the best preventative health approach you possibly take. Like you can use inflammation markers. If you have a familial history with disease as well, you can actually prevent that potentially as well by identifying it very early. Yeah, it's so helpful, man. So I'm a massive advocate and stickler for it. I think it should be accessible to all people, which is ultimately our plan, really. But I mean, if the NHS was grant us access to that and actually give you context what your blood's meant, mate, like the amount of heart attacks you could prevent, disease, it'd be so cool.
Goes back to the whole preventative.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just the best health insurance policy, really. Like there's no doubt about it. I mean, like the amount of people whose lipids profiles, like their fats, cholesterols in their bloods, is just obscenely bad because they don't take care of this stuff. And even if they're a little bit overweight, it just goes off the charts. Yeah, it's insane, man. Like the person whose DEXA scan came back that high, I'm dreading getting their bloods back. Cause it's going to be a nightmare. Like it's not going to be pleasant. And like also informing them of that is like a bitter pill for them to swallow, for them to actually realize, shit, I've done that to myself. And they're not old, they're in their mid-30s, you know? So, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Well, to be fair, dude, that has been very, very informative. Like,
Thank you for being our first.
thank you, yeah, because
Set the bar very high.
yeah, I know, yeah, I know. Oh wow, yeah. So thank you,
And yeah, everyone who's watching, if you need to, or if you want to improve your performance, you know who to speak to now. Yeah, yeah.